Welcome to Radiance the Podcast, a space where modern wisdom, mysticism, and feminine embodiment meet. Hello, my name is Dr. Irene, and I'm your host. Before we dive into this very insightful podcast, I want us to start by doing a little grounding exercise. And wherever you are, I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. If you are driving, don't close your eyes. Just listen to my voice. And I want you to take 3 big, deep breaths. So inhaling and taking the biggest, longest breath that you take in today. And then exhale, maybe exhale through your mouth. And with your exhale, just allow yourself to anchor into your body. And inhale again. And taking in the most delicious breath. And exhaling with your mouth, relaxing your shoulders, relaxing your belly. And one more deep breath in, the biggest breath you're taking today. And exhaling. And just allow the breath to anchor you into your body. And now breathing normally. Inhale and exhale through your nose. And just notice what 3 deep breaths can do to your energy. Notice if there has been any shifts in just 3 breaths. Our breath is the most powerful anchor tool that we have. Immediate access to allow us to ground, to come back into our bodies, to come back into our energy, into our presence. And with that, if you have your eyes closed, just allow yourself to open your eyes again and just notice any shifts in your body. And this is what I mean with feminine embodiment, is utilizing practices like breath work to come into our bodies, to come back into our energies. In this way, we can be more present in whatever we do, in whatever we are encountering. So with that, I am very, very excited to have my first guest for this podcast. Her name is Karina La Torres. She is a Mexican artist and a Mexican astrologer. And I am very, very happy to have her because we've known each other for a very long time. We grew up in the same town, and life took us through different paths. And 20 years later, we reconnected in this magical realm of astrology. So she's here with us to dive into the themes of evolutionary astrology and the feminine archetypes within astrology. So welcome, Karina. I'm so happy to have you here.
Thank you very much for inviting me. And thank you very much for opening the doors for me to your community, to your listeners, and for being this beautiful soul sister that you have always been to me.
Thank you. Thank you. I love you. If you can just share a little bit of your story, who you are, of your path, how astrology came into your life, and why you love it so much.
That's a long story. I'll try to make it short. Well, as you said, I'm an artist. I studied fine arts because deep down I knew that my soul needed to be expressed. Um, I took the long way to realize that I wanted to become an artist. I did. Through my work, I've always expressed experiences that shake my soul, and I found in art a sacred tool for healing myself, and thus, without even knowing or without even intentioning it, healing others, no, healing those who get in touch with my art. The same way astrology came to me years after being practicing as an artist. I was living in Tulum. I had recently became a mother, and we know that becoming a mother, it's like an initiatory rite of passage, and it can like break your whole world down, your identity. It's a big doorway, a big threshold to cross. So I found myself again in another crisis, searching for answers. I have always had this necessity deep, deep down to understand, to find meaning in everything that happens around me, in everything that I do, in everything that I go through. So I was having trouble, difficulties with motherhood. I had recently separated from my son's dad. My family was having trouble, these moments of huge crisis that all of a sudden come and shake us. And I was desperately looking for answers. I was already in touch with the spiritual practices living in Tulum. I had already been in touch with tarot and the symbols because I have always been like deeply drawn to symbolism. That's probably why I became an artist also, but I needed more. So I started to research on my own. I went bankrupt back then. So, like, without a penny in my pocket, I started to Google like any free information that I could get about what was going on because I thought that there must have been something bigger than me, that what was happening to me wasn't like my fault, this feeling that this can't be me. There's something bigger here. There's a bigger lesson. There is something. So astrology made a click to me and I started to Google. I learned about birth charts. I learned about positions. I learned about the planets. And driven fully by curiosity, I started to search like, what is the moon in Virgo? And what is this position? And what is this position? And all of a sudden, my mind, all the pieces came together, this kind of puzzle that had been like broken apart. The puzzle started to fit. And the most important thing is that I reconnected to myself. I recognized myself in these symbolisms, and it made me feel so safe. I forgave myself for things that I thought I had done wrong. And most importantly, I felt held by something bigger, like a bigger order. And it just confirmed that every part of my personality, every pattern that I had been dealing with had an intention and had a mission. And from there, the rest is history. I started to I cannot keep myself quiet. So I started to share this with everybody. I started to look to not only my chart, but my sons, my mom, my dad, my brother, like everybody. And all of a sudden, I was seeing the world in this typo way, and I couldn't stop sharing. So that's how I became an astrologer. And little by little, like asking friends, like, can I read you? Can I read you? Can I read you? So here I am, a practicing astrologer. I've been doing this professionally for about 5 years. And I love how that effect that it had on me, I love watching how it unfolds in the people I read or the people that I share this wisdom with.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your story. I love how you spoke of how astrology helped you to bring the pieces together. And for me, that's a process of transpersonal therapy. We say gestalt. If anybody is familiar with the process of gestalt, it's to yoke together, to become complete, to bring the pieces, the archetypes, the characters, the stories together, and to remember that you're not broken, that you are whole and holy, that you are holy, that you are one. And so I love that astrology facilitated that process for you. And something that you said of forgiving yourself. And for me, that's something that astrology can give us. It's like not only the forgiveness, but the permission to be a certain way and to understand our limitations and our powers and our virtues and our skills and our medicine, but also like our weaknesses and where we need to work and cultivate more practices or elements or skills. So I love that you brought that. And how I said before, like we've known each other since childhood. We grew up in the same town. And through through the years, I've been following your career as an artist, and your art has always been very magical how you utilize the spirits of the animals with sacred geometry. For me, it has always been very archetypical and holographic of the universe and of nature. And so then suddenly seeing you transition into astrology and starting to see your messages and how you translate the messages of the skies, I love it. I love how you communicate the codes of the stars. And I just feel like you're such a natural teacher and have a very easeful way of transmitting this sometimes mysterious language that the stars have. And then talking about archetypes, like moving into that field, like what is an archetype for you? Because I know a lot of people might not understand what an archetype is. And we talk a lot about archetypes in astrology and in body mind therapy, psychotherapy. So, what is an archetype for you?
Skipping the dictionary description, for me, it's a symbol, right? But it's a symbol that contains a code. And in this, it's a coded pattern or it's a coded story. I am very drawn to story. An archetype can tell a whole story and it is encoded in this symbol. So in astrology, planets represent these archetypes or behavior codes, let's say, or patterns that it's encoded in one single symbol. It's like art. You see a work of art and there's a whole universe within and behind this work of art. But you cannot define it's a painting, it's a sculpture, yes, it has a label, but to me, it's similar to how I see archetypes. It's a code that contains a whole story with codes, with patterns. So, for example, when you identify yourself with an archetype, you consciously or unconsciously live that story that archetype represents. So when you get to know the code in this archetype, you can recognize it in yourself, and therefore you can decide whether you love it, whether it serves you or it doesn't. And then from there, you can break the pattern or ride the wave of the pattern, right? It's a beautiful way to connect with that part of you that lives and exists in this world through this symbol that you don't even know, right?
Yes, I love that. For me, it's similar. It's a symbol. It's an imprint. It's the original imprint of a symbol that has a certain energy or consciousness, right? That has a certain pattern and it has a certain information, a story that when you are aware of it, like you say, you can embody it and you can live it out. And that's where astrology comes in, that is very, very helpful because it brings into the awareness. It becomes conscious instead of being unconscious. Because remember that 90% of our consciousness is unconscious. We only have 10% of consciousness of things that we are aware. And I love this quote by Carl Jung that says, "Until you make your unconscious conscious, it will rule your life and you will call it destiny." So for me, astrology and the archetypes is another tool of bringing more consciousness of the different parts of yourself to be able to live them out or not. And that's where your conscious choice, your free will comes in.
Exactly. It's becoming aware, right? Let's say, for example, the archetype of the victim. If you don't know that you're playing it, you will put yourself into situations that confirm that, yes, you are a victim, right? But when you become aware that you are, in a way, embodying that archetype or that symbolism, then you can decide because you are able to see the situations in which you are putting yourself into. And that's where free will comes in, because before becoming aware of this, it presents itself as destiny. And there you go. Oh, I always fall into these situations and I always run into these kind of people and everything happens to me. It's like a practical example, a simple example of how, of what you're saying, which to me, it's such a revealing quote.
Yeah, and astrology is about revealing, right? Revealing the archetypes, revealing the powers of the archetypes. And with this, for example, if you have put yourself in situations where things don't work out and everything happens to you and you're in the role of the victim, once you're aware and once you work with other archetypes, you can remind yourself that's not the only part of yourself that you have. You have also the archetype of the warrior, you have the archetype of the magician, you have the archetype of the queen or the king, you have the archetype of the lover, you have the archetype of the witch, of the high priestess. And so then you can start choosing to activate different archetypes to take you out of the situation. And that's where the magic comes in.
Exactly. And in this code within the archetypes, there's always a key, there's always like a lower vibration and a higher vibration. So if you recognize that you're living like in the shadow side of the archetype, you can choose to walk to the bright side of the archetype. Because
So,
sometimes life just pulls you into like, this is your story, this is your personal myth. No? So once you
totally.
become aware of this, and that's where astrology is an amazing tool, right? Because we know nowadays that what the way we talk to ourselves, the way we speak, the words that we choose create our reality, and that's what we start to experience. But also what other people think about us. So while we were growing up, for example, we were told that we were a certain way, and it's kind of like you marry that archetype and you act it out.
Mhm.
And all of a sudden you discover that there's a beautiful side to this archetype and you come out and explore that side of the archetype. Let's say the higher vibration or the bright side of the story.
So, what would you say would be like the higher vibration of the victim archetype?
The higher vibration of the victim. Thinking in terms of astrology, for example, when I hear the word victim, my mind goes to Pisces, right?
Mm.
Um, and the thing is that Pisces is very, very, very sensitive. It represents the energy of oneness, of non separation, of you are me and I am you. So people with a lot of Pisces energy, they're empaths. They feel a lot for other people. It's like, you're cold, here's my coat, even if I freeze. No? So it also represents like sacrifice. So there is a thin line between sacrificing and becoming the victim. I always have to give and poor me.
A
I'm
martyr.
the
A martyr.
martyr. Exactly. No. So there's these encoded words in all of these archetypes that if you like listen to them carefully, you can see where this behavior comes from.
So then what would be like the evolution of Pisces? Like what would be the highest expression of light in the Pisces?
The knowing that we are part of everything, that we are all the same, that we come from the same source, we're going to the same source. It's like the dissolution of ego. So the higher expression of Pisces is universal love.
Mhm. And that's a beautiful way of seeing how evolutionary astrology works, of like
Exactly.
how to move from the shadow to the light. And the symbol, the archetype has the key, has the medicine for the transformation.
In evolutionary astrology, apart from the idea that there is a higher intention, like we come to this world, we incarnate into this body, but our soul has a higher intention. So there's always a what for. There's always the sense of my soul is experiencing this lifetime in order to evolve, to learn, to I cannot stop thinking about the lunar nodes and the symbolism of the dragon. the head of the dragon, like it needs to ingest new experiences in order to live them, experience them,
Can
and
you explain a
move.
little bit? Can you explain a little bit what are the lunar nodes so that our listeners know what we're talking about?
It's a very important part of evolutionary astrology, actually. The lunar nodes are mathematical points, and this is where the orbit of the moon intersects with the orbit of the sun. And in these exact points, when we have a lunation, when we have a new moon or a full moon, we're near these points, this is where eclipses happen. And eclipses are believed to be portals. They speak about alignments from like the sun, the moon, and the earth, my higher self, my conscious self, and my inner self. This is like an adjustment axis. One of the lunar nodes, it's called the south node, and it is a lower point, and there is a north node, which is like a higher point. We come to this life through the south node, so it contains past experiences that we have already, let's say, mastered. Like nobody can master an energy, right? But energy
Integrate.
that we already know, that we have already experienced, we have learned from it, we have treasures come from this past. That's the tail of the dragon. That's also something that you have to leave behind in order to grow. And then the North Node speaks about the intention of the soul in this lifetime. Where is the point of growth and evolution? This is an energy that the head of the dragon has to ingest in order to evolve and move forward. It usually points to an energy that it's unknown, unless there's a planet around, for example, but it takes you out of the comfort zone. So it speaks about the fact that to grow, you need to get out of your comfort zone.
Yeah, I love that. I love how you explain how evolutionary astrology it's designed with a higher intention, and this speaks to a divine technology that exists in the universe. And we have access to that divine technology through the planets and through the signs. And that just blows my mind when you start like connecting the dots and seeing the possibilities and also utilizing these codes for transformation and for shifting from the lower vibration to the higher vibration. Just going back to the victim archetype that we were talking about, how beautiful that is that someone that can have access to these codes can realize that the experience that they're having, the suffering, the pain, the victim identity can be transformed into love, into universal love, into this knowing that you are one with everything. And that's why you feel so much. And that's why you're so sensitive. And just having that realization, knowing that there's so much love, and then starting to cultivate practices to be able to stay grounded and not be overwhelmed and overtaken by all that water energy, right? And how this is part of evolutionary astrology that there is a design, there is a journey for us to follow, like the hero's journey. And we have the codes, we have the portals, which two of them are the nodes.
Exactly. And this is ancient. This is an ancient science, even though it is called pseudoscience. But everything we know about astrology has come from observation for millennia. This modern astrology that we're talking about, it's not deterministic because at some point in history, astrology became that, you are doomed to be like this or like that. Or I have clients that come to me and say, they read my chart once and they told me that I would never get married. Hold on.
Hold on. Yeah.
Let me look at your seventh house. Let me look at your moon, your Venus, and this. So this is your challenge, and this is what you have to learn through relationships, and the ultimate decision is yours, right? There's free will. So it's a beautiful practice that astrology has come to what it is nowadays. That it has been integrated into this. It's been looked at as these divine codes that help you evolve and grow and not just describing.
Exactly. It's this reminder that everything can be transformed. Not everything is set in stone, right? And that's sometimes why people get afraid, because some people are still afraid of oracles and magic and magical practices and astrology, because they feel that once they tell you that's how it's going to be. And that's not true. Everything can be transformed. We are magicians, we are co creators with the universe, with God, Goddess, a universal flow, whatever you want to call it. We are constantly in this creative flow and we can transform our lives. But for me, the first step of transformation is to become aware, is to have consciousness, awareness of where the challenges are, where are my limitations, what patterns I am repeating from my life, from past lives, from my ancestors, you know? And so then the pattern stops with me. And the idea, yes, is to grow in with more love, to grow, to open our hearts, to be more loving, to be more aware, to be more present, to have more connection.
To
Right?
recognize yourself as a divine being,
To remember your true self.
as a divine being, knowing that you are synchronized with all of these, with this order, with this cosmic order, because it's not that all these planets are making this to me. No, this is happening out there in the cosmos, in the universe, and I can synchronize myself
Yeah.
with what's going on out there.
Yeah, it's like a map. It's a cosmic map.
And then you recognize yourself as a divine being, and as a divine being, you know that you are a creator and not the
Mhm.
victim of
Not the victim.
circumstances, for example.
I hope to that. And with that, I want us to move into feminine archetypes. I want us to touch on feminine archetypes because, yeah, I feel there's a lot of masculine archetypes in astrology, and not we just have Venus, the moon, and Lilith. Those are the three that I am aware. For sure, there might be more.
Even it was just introduced into astrology in the back in the 60s, so it's not ancient. It's not even ancient. For centuries, for millennia, the only two archetypes that were found in astrology were Venus and the moon. And lately, past century, these other archetypes have been like taken roles in astrology that we can find in our charts. These are actually asteroids that were discovered early in the 18th century, 19th century, but as I said, recently introduced into astrology. They do talk about deeper layers of the feminine, right? Because when you said, I only know Venus, the moon, and Lilith, because that's what we read about constantly, right? But it can be very like putting yourself in a box or having to choose, whether I'm the moon, the archetype of the mother, or I'm Venus, the archetype of the lover. And there's like no other choice. And then there's Lilith, that we'll talk about her, but she's the one who wants to liberate us from this, trying to put ourselves in these little boxes, right? But then there's these other very interesting asteroids that do talk about different aspects of the feminine psyche. They're in everybody's chart. Men,
And this is something that I wanted to touch on, that like masculine archetypes, feminine archetypes, masculine energy, feminine energy transcends gender and gender identification. We all have feminine, masculine energies, and these archetypes are working within us. But I do feel that it's important to talk more about the feminine energies because we live in such a masculine centric society and culture that we need to heal as well the shadow aspects of the masculine, but also to give more power and to bring more into the center of the feminine, because that's the energy, it's a creative power, it's a Shakti. It's the emotions, it's everything that we are. So, having more awareness of more archetypes can give us more tools to access those powers within ourselves.
exactly. And it is so important because living, there has to be a balance, right? There's masculine and feminine within each and one of us, but through history, conditionment, etc., in general, the energy has, like the balance has been gone through the masculine for ages, right? Which is doing, achieving, living externally, going outwards. And the feminine has been diminished in a way. The feminine is, if the masculine is day, the feminine is night. And in the night, the moon comes out, and it's the unconscious world, and it's the ability to look inside, to become introspective, to go to these places to gather wisdom and then come out and act the masculine. I was listening the other day to someone saying, like, it's no coincidence that we, like, most of the population on Earth writes with the right hand, and the left hand is useless for many of us. So that tells a lot about how, about our, like, ancient conditionment, no? So it's beautiful that we are becoming aware of this in order to shift the balance again. No?
Mhm. Mhm. Beautiful. Okay, so tell us a little bit about the moon, Venus, Lilith, and any other more that you are aware of that would be good for us to become aware of.
Okay, so, well, I'll start talking about the two that we already know, the moon and Venus, right? The moon represents the archetype of the mother, speaking about archetypes. What does a mother do? She nurtures, she cares, she contains. It's what we relate to safety, to feeling loved, to feel warm, to feel, and it's an energy that we need in order to feel good. It's how we handle and manage our emotions. It's super interesting in astrology, looking in your chart, looking at the moon. Like for people who already know, who only know their sun signs, once they discover their moon signs, they're always like, oh, wow, that's way more me than my sun sign, right? Because it's an unconscious pattern. It represents the unconscious part. So let's say that for me, I would say that the moon, it's the mother of all the feminine archetypes. It's the one who gives birth. It's the one who creates life, for example, no? Um, and it's the one who is in charge to, like, give this contention and safety for life to develop, just like a mother with the child. And then there's Venus, the archetype of Venus. Venus, she's Aphrodite. She's the goddess. She is the daughter. She actually comes from the myth of when Kronos, Saturn, castrate Uranus. And it is said that he throws Uranus' genitals to the ocean, and the from the espuma, how do you say espuma?
Home.
The foam of the ocean, Uranus' testicles, Venus was born. So she comes out in this shell, right? So we're talking about the sky, which is Uranus. We're talking about Chronos, which is space and time, 3D. And from there, Venus is born. So it's like the spirit incarnated in a body in 3D form. And it's related to the five senses. So she's sensual. She touches, she sees, she smells, she tastes, she enjoys life. She's here to enjoy life.
And then also like Neptune would be in the mix as well because she's in the ocean. When
Neptune comes later in Greek mythology.
I would have thought that like the energetics of Neptune, because she's born from the ocean, that some of the energetics would be integrated into Venus as well.
It is actually said that Neptune is like the higher octave of Venus, because if Venus represents love, Neptune is universal love, love for everything that exists. And Venus represents beauty and harmony, like the shell that she came out from. We can see this pattern, this spiral pattern in all of nature. So it's beauty, it's balance, it's the beauty of life, right? Even like the dance, if you look at the trace that Venus and the sun make around the sun throughout its cycles, you get a 5-petal rose. So it's
No,
related to
that blows my mind. The first time that I saw that pattern, like actually, you guys that are listening, like go and Google the pattern of Venus in the sky, and we'll put a link to it here in the podcast for you to see it because it's magical, and this is called the Rose of Venus.
the rose of Venus. And it speaks about the beauty of life and the perfection of life. No, there's a Venus inside all of us that tells that we are perfect. And in a practical way, Venus in a birth chart talks about an energy that you love, that you desire, that you attract, because she's a goddess of attraction. It is based on the idea that there is something super valuable inside of us. And this is something that you really enjoy, that you love, that you like about yourself. And when you put it out there in the world, then you get more of that. So that's the way in which she relates to the law of attraction. She speaks
She's
about
magnetic, no? She's magnetic.
she's magnetic. She speaks about what other people like about us. So it's our power of attraction, right? So let's say, for example, a Venus in Gemini, she loves to talk. She loves expressing, right? Venus in Taurus, she's more inclined to the sensual part, to the body, probably art with the hands. And she speaks about a talent that we have that other people love, no? So there's these two archetypes that can be categorized in this, the mother and the lover, but that limits us as women. So then there come these new archetypes. I don't know if you want me to speak first about Lilith or because it's different. Physically, Lilith is not a body. She's also a mathematical point, a hypothetical point. Whereas the other four main archetypes, because as we evolve, more dwarf planets are being discovered and introduced into astrology, but we won't get into that, no? There's these 4 asteroids that have feminine names that represent other parts of the feminine psyche, but they are bodies themselves, no? Lilith is not. So I don't know which way would you like me to go for it.
Start with me.
Lilith, because she liberates the rest of them.
Yeah, we love her.
Well, if you have been paying attention, I have been speaking about like this, the moon and Venus, it's all good with them. It's like the good mother and the good lover and beauty. But what about our raw side, our dark side? She has been called sometimes the dark side of the moon, even though she's not the other side of the moon. She's not like the other face of the moon. She is a mathematical point, which is this exact point where the moon is the farthest away from Earth. Like the moon around Earth, the orbit is not a perfect circle. It's like an oval. And one side of the oval is closer to the Earth, and then there's this other one which is like far, far, far away. That's Lilith, like the farthest from paradise. She comes from this myth. There are many versions of this myth. It's pre-biblical. And all of these stories say that she was the first woman in paradise before Eve. She was Adam's wife. And they were both created under the image of God, and they were both divine beings. But at some point, Lilith, she actually decided to leave paradise because, and I do believe that this talks about the history of patriarchy, because like the myth literally says that she didn't want to be lying under men during sex, that she wanted to be on top, but Adam wouldn't let her. So this speaks about losing her freedom to the rules of men that God himself permitted. So she decides to leave paradise, and God sends her to the Red Sea. She goes to live with the demons. She is criticized. She is ashamed. She's pointed by everybody because she lost paradise. Like, how could you lose paradise? How could you decide? But she knew that she was a divine being and that she couldn't be submitted to any form of law, in a way, no? So
Oppression.
oppression. She speaks about this savage archetype of the feminine who knows that she's connected with nature, with the rhythms. She can speak directly to God, and for that she was punished and she was criticized. And then it is said that she's the one that sends the snake that tempts Eve, because while she's gone, God creates Eve from the rib of Adam. So that's like more like the lunar woman who is devoted to the rules and the husband, etc. So this speaks about the way in which, even though we repressed this part of ourselves, it doesn't end there. These parts of ourselves that are buried down in the unconscious, they don't stay there. They come out because they want revenge, because they're mad, because it's what was done to them. It's unfair. So actually, she speaks about this. If the moon talks about emotions, and the quality of emotions that I mentioned, which is nurturing, loving, containing, these other emotions are considered like uncivilized because it's anger, it's actually like desire for revenge because this wasn't fair. And then they punish her even more because she was so creative that the myth said that she gives birth every 9 months. And she was like the babies were ripped away from her, no? So her creations were ripped away from her, but she creates again and again and again and again. So it's a very, very powerful archetype, usually misunderstood, celebrated, yes, which is amazing, but it is hidden very deep down in the unconscious, and she comes out without saying, "Here I go," no? So it's something to be. It's an amazing point to become aware of.
Yeah. Yeah. For me, she represents like the wild feminine, that part of ourselves that is untamed, that is connected to nature and to the magic. And she's very sexual as well, right? Like she's having babies every 9 months, so she's having sex. She's making love. She's very sexual. And yes, like in the Bible, she was demonized. She was categorized as a demon, and so that's why she was exiled. But really, she is in the same categories of Adam, as you said. Like she is connected to God and she is very powerful. But because she decided to leave, like you said, like she's been put into the shadows, into the unconscious. And so it is a very powerful archetype to unleash. And she is a wrathful goddess. Like you said, the white mother, she's the black mother.
Exactly.
Transformative.
And it's a part in our chart that talks about this part of us that we are ashamed to show to the world because it won't be well seen in a
And the
way.
shadow as the shadow is everything that we reject about ourselves and about others because it's not seen as righteous by culture and society, because it's not seen as good. But
Push her down.
but there's so much power there and
And
beauty.
when we don't recognize her, she can come as rage.
Yes, of course. If we don't integrate her in a healthy way, if she comes out in a way that can be very destructive for yourself and for others. Yeah.
She's called, in Spanish, would be La Furia del Viento.
See, and
But this is very important because it gives us, like knowing her gives us permission to explode.
it's so important. If you've never a cathartic experience in your life, I highly recommend it in a space where you feel contained and safe, but like rip it, like shout and allow yourself to scream to the top of your lungs and let your rage out. It's so important to move it through the body, because if not, that rage stays in your body and it attacks yourself. So it is said, like through research, that a lot of autoimmune diseases is actually anger that has not been expressed, because anger creates heat, it's inflammation. So a lot of autoimmune diseases is because of repressed anger, of repressed Lilith. We need
So
to
you
let
attack yourself, no?
you attack yourself because anger has to move somewhere. The flow of anger has an energy and wants to move forward and out, like shouting and hitting. And if we don't allow that energy goes within and it attacks you. So that's why, ladies, it's so important to allow yourself to express that anger. And you can do that by starting to work with the archetype of Lilith.
Recognizing the Lilith in you. And it's so interesting how when not I was going to say when she was discovered, but she wasn't discovered because she's not a body. But when she was introduced into astrology and when she became a thing, it coincided with these very powerful feminist movements back in the 60s, which was liberating the feminine.
Feminine.
And it is very interesting how from there, all of these asteroids come to the light, right? And they are introduced also in astrology and psychology. So in a way, it's like Lilith liberated them, no? Like these other parts of ourselves. No?
Beautiful.
And these asteroids are in this asteroid belt, which is between Mars and Jupiter. And it's these four feminine archetypes, which are Ceres, Pallas, Athena, Athena, Pallas Juno, and Vesta. I'm sure, like, probably some of you who are listening, you already have heard them named, right?
Ceres.
Also Ceres, which is
Okay. Ceres. Ceres.
Ceres, Pallas, Athena, Juno, and Vesta. So now, because these are not planets, these are not like heavy parts of ourselves, but they give layers. It's very important in a reading that you know your moon and you know your Venus, and then like complement with these layers, right? Thinking about the feminine being like the unseen, right? The unconscious and the night on the left hand. So the difference between these four archetypes, Ceres is the goddess of agriculture. She was protecting the fields. She's protecting the food. So she's a nurturer. So she speaks about our capacity to provide. She's related to cycles of like abundance and scarcity because she's related just as similar to the energy of Virgo, she's related to the seasons. During winter, there's no production. During the summer, there's spring, summer, there's harvests, no? So she's related to these cycles in our lives. Wherever she is in our chart, she can tell us a lot about that. And also in transit, when it's depending on where is it in the sky, she points to these energies. In the myth, she's the mother of Persephone, and Persephone is kidnapped by Hades, Pluto, and she is taken into the underworld. And it is said that Ceres got so mad that she stopped the seasons on Earth. So it was like an eternal winter. So Mercury came to Hades and he negotiated her liberation. But the thing is that Persephone, the daughter, she had already decided to be the queen. Like she actually liked it there. And she was a queen of the underworld. So they come into this agreement in which the daughter Persephone was going to live 6 months in the underworld and 6 months on Earth, no? So it talks about this in how it has many layers, how we nurture our dreams and how we live them in reality, like the night and day, the underworld and paradise, the cycles of agriculture, but mostly related to nurturing, providing. So people with like a strong Ceres in their chart, especially women with a strong Ceres in their chart, they're like very, I can provide for myself and my whole family, for example.
Self-sufficient and sovereign.
Sufficient, exactly. And then there's Pallas. This is another like aspect of the feminine, which is the intellectual part of the feminine, because we are also very smart. Actually, the glyph is very similar to Venus. Venus, it's a circle on top of a cross, but Pallas, Athena's, is like a square on top of the cross, a rombo, a diamond. No? So she was a goddess of strategy. She was very smart. She was born from he was born an adult already from Zeus' forehead, like from his brain, no? So she speaks
Wow.
about this intellectual side of the feminine, which has to do with intuition. It's not just like reasoning. It's not Mercury, which is like our learning, reasoning, etc. Reasoning, etc. She's like more strategic. She's very smart. She's a very empowered feminine archetype, and it's interesting how if you have a prominent, for example, Pallas archetype in your chart, in your life, it speaks about like women who impose with their intelligence that not any man can like handle in a way. You know, like it's like the smart girl who wasn't asked out to prom because she was too much, something like this. Yeah, she in the story she carries some of this being on her own, not like she doesn't have any lovers in the myth, for example, no. So this is very revealing when you start to see these archetypes in your chart because sometimes they resonate so much and you're like, oh,
Pallas Athena.
balance a theme.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, she reminds me a lot of the archetype of Diana the Huntress.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, she's related actually. I don't know if it's because it's Roman and Greek, etc. No?
I think Athena is a Greek and Diana the Huntress is Roman. And it's that similar, that story, right? Of a young woman, a maiden that is in the forest. She is complete to herself, untouched by men, by society, and she's in the forest, perfecting her craft and her skill, like hunting and creating art, or to be with her sisters and animals, like no lovers, no romantic affairs. Just like
Balance was actually a warrior. So she's
over
with the shield and sword. And she's also like the goddess of arts and craft, let's say.
arts and crafts.
Uh-huh.
And protector of women.
Protector of women.
Protector of women. She's a midwife as well.
So you see, there's like more room for us to identify ourselves with not just Venus and the moon. No. So we have these two, Ceres, the nurturer, Pallas, the
The
strategic,
warrior strategist, yeah.
and then there's Juno. She's the goddess of compromise. She's the goddess of marriage. In the story, she actually, well, in the story, this is like an arranged marriage in order to bring two cultures together. These kind of marriages, that's part of the myth. But she talks about compromise and agreements that we come to something or someone, depending on where it is on your chart, because it can be a person or it can be your work. I'm committed
to something.
I'm like sacredly committed to something. It doesn't have to be a relationship or a person.
Yeah, I'm sacredly committed to this one.
For example, do you know your Juno?
No. No, we haven't looked at my asteroid.
Oh, no, right?
We'll do that after this.
My Juno, for example, is in Leo in the 5th house. And I have observed myself how I am really committed to original expression. Like, even I was telling you this earlier, like, I cannot stand when ChatGPT gives me something in my voice because it's not me.
Yeah. Yeah. Darn it.
Exactly. So I am like, I hadn't noticed this before, but I am like super committed to the original. Whatever comes from me has to come from me, from nobody else, no? So it can be a concept, but it can be also a person. But she represents commitment in relationships and in marriage in the bigger scale of sharing your life with someone else in order to balance out, to come to worlds, to fusion two worlds together.
Mm-hmm. I don't know. This makes me think about like values, sharing values with something, with someone, with how that can inform this archetype of Juno.
Well, it's very interesting that you mentioned that because Venus talks about values. what is our set of values? No? What do we value the most? What
Mhm.
is valuable inside of me? And Juno, the symbol, it's very similar, but instead of being like the circle on top of the cross, the circle is like a star, un
Okay.
asterisco.
Uh-huh.
So it like unites the points, no? Like me with you with me. It's
How?
like the axis is in the birth chart, the lines that balance out these agreements. So it has to do with values, your values and my values.
Unvalued. Yeah, because I feel like Venus might be more free, no? Venus is more Aphrodite, the lover, like she is still exploring and she's not committed to a partner. She has many partners. She's in love with life. And with this, with Juno, like what I'm seeing is, yeah, someone that knows her values and wants to be in right alignment with someone that is creating a compromise, but that is in right alignment with her values.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, those are amazing.
Hopefully, no, ideally. Because sometimes in the shadow aspect, we make compromises and we tolerate things that are not serving our highest self. And we start to tolerate relationships, jobs, circumstances because of this compromise, because of this commitment. But I guess how I'm feeling Juno in her highest expression is to create those alliances, but with people, jobs, circumstances that are in alignment.
Alliances is a beautiful, it's a
Alliance.
beautiful word. Yes, exactly. To balance out. Venus rules Taurus, but she also rules Libra.
Mm.
And Libra talks about this, no? And actually I'm gonna send it to you so you can put it where you put the link to this episode. There is a goddess mandala
Mm.
that puts Venus in the center. And all of these other feminine archetypes revolve around, and they're all contained inside of the moon. This is very interesting to watch as a symbol because it,
Beautiful.
yeah, moon
What
contains
correct?
all of these archetypes, but Venus is in the center. And from Venus, we get all of this. So,
And
yeah,
Lilith,
definitely.
and Lilith
It's just
were
out there in the other side, like opposing where the moon is. She's a rebel. She's very rebellious. There's another archetype of the rebellious one in astrology, which is Uranus. But this is different, right? Because this is the rebellion that comes from knowing that you are a divine being, the Lilith one.
and Lilith one. Yeah, the Lilith one. Yeah. Yeah.
So we have the nurturer, the warrior strategist, the goddess of commitment,
Uh-huh.
and then there's Vesta. I love Vesta. Vesta, it's also sometimes misunderstood because Vesta, it's kind of like the virgin, no? But because she's in charge of taking care of the sacred fire.
And the hearth.
So it's like the symbol, it's like a V with a little flame. So she protects the sacred fire, what is sacred inside. She talks about creativity. She talks about, but she,
Oh, the Virgin, that speaks more of the crone, of the wise medicine woman, of the wise elder.
exactly.
That is yeah, which is a virgin as well, which is a mature virgin because she is in her own.
She is in her own. She's in her own creative force, in her own creative power. And it was related at some point with the nuns, you know? So I say virgin in this sense of no sex, for example,
Yeah,
no?
yeah, yeah. But
Of like preserving my
it's
sexuality as a sacred thing for sacred practices, for sacred, no? But it's very interesting. I was listening not so long ago to a podcast where they were describing these stories about the Vistaics and this very strong archetype, which is devoted to the fire of creation, to the divine flame. And it's not always related to someone who doesn't relate or doesn't have sex or no. Sometimes it is found in charts of people who do relate and have relationships, but with a sense of awkwardness or things that like don't turn right or it doesn't feel right inside. I don't know. I mean, I know that we all have been in those situations, no? She represents the knowing what it's right for you, who's right for you, and how to use it, no?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love you with the graphical symbol.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see her perfectly. It's this woman that is tending the fire, the sacred fire. And she is of service and she is in full devotion to the Dharma, to the path of illumination and liberation for everyone. And for me, she is the integration of all the archetypes of the virgin, of the lover, because she is devoted to life. She loves life. To the mother, because she is tending and nurturing and containing. And then the wise elder, because she is the embodiment of this inner knowing of of the path, of the maps, of the codes. You know?
Like a priestess. Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
a high priestess.
To put it. Yeah.
I'm a Vesta.
Vesta. She's like she has a little bit of all of them.
Oh,
She brings them together.
she integrates them. Vesta.
And actually, like the graphic symbol, I always encourage people to look at the
Symbol.
the symbols. That's why for me, it's so important, like in consultations, to share my screen so that you can see actually your chart.
Symbol speak 1,000 words. Like once you can connect the archetype with the symbol, then the symbol holds that energy. And so it tells
Naturally,
the whole story.
the symbol tells the whole story, just as tarot cards, right?
So what's the symbol of it?
It's like a V. It comes like this, you know? So like everything converges.
The Holy Grail.
The grail. And
Holy
then there's this
Grail.
flame. It's actually similar to, like the flame in the Olympics. It's like this thing with a flame. It's a holy grail.
The Holy Grail.
Holy grail.
Magdalene. It's the Mary Magdalene.
I love having conversations about astrology because this is how symbols come to life and they open new doors to you every time like you speak and you talk about them and you see them and we are exchanging information and what you get, what I'm downloading, what you're downloading, and boom.
Doors open. Portals open. I love it. I love it. I love receiving this information. Thank you for sharing this 4 archetypes. Well, all of them. I feel that they're so important to learn about and to experience and to work with them. So in your experience, how can someone start to embody, start to integrate these archetypes?
I would say just being aware of them, that they exist, that they're part of us. Because yes, there can be one that it's more prominent than the other, but all of them exist within us. All of them live within us. So, like knowing, putting this into words actually brings this awareness that, oh, there's different sides of me, there's different parts of me. It's not like I have to label myself, but knowing that there is this range of possibilities that I can be and that I can embody, it's already so liberating. And then you can decide which one do you want to live right now, or you can recognize which one is it that you're living right now and it's probably imprisoning you. So for me, like embodying, as you said, first is becoming aware. And once you become aware, there's no turning back. It's like crossing this threshold, crossing this portal. Once you see, you cannot unsee. And that's already integrating and embodying it. So, well, for me, because of my constitution and my style, by studying and knowing and naming these archetypes is the way that I started to recognize them inside of me and embody them.
Beautiful. I love that. Yeah, I feel that doing research and starting to learn the different characteristics, virtues, limitations, they can start to give you codes and keys and information of the self, right? And then as you say, then you can start choosing. We have free will. We can start choosing which archetype, which part of the feminine you want to play with. For me, it's a lot about playing as well. Like today I want to play being Aphrodite. So I'm gonna dress in my most delicious and beautiful clothes that make me feel like a goddess. No, today I'm like in my bleed time, so I'm gonna go into my witch underworld throne. I'm just gonna let my hair be like wild and messy and free bleed and do art and journal and do my tarot and go into deep meditations. So you can play, you can play, you can play. But as you say, starting to be aware of them it's a great way to start embodying these archetypes. And for me also, having your birth chart read by an astrologer like Karina can give you a lot of insights and a lot of tools for your evolution of the divine being that you are. So, Kari, where can people find you if they want to have a reading of their birth chart?
They can find me in my socials. In Instagram, I am carimayo.rx, carimayo.rx, as an retrograde. There are the links to my booking site and to my website and all of the information. Um, yeah, take a look. Take a look.
Yeah, it, like having your chart read by Karina is transformational. I highly, highly recommend it. So please go and check it out. All the links are going to be in the here in the podcast for you to take a look with Karina's information and contact. And with that, we close this episode. Gracias, amiga hermosa, por este episodio tan bonito. Thank you, thank you, thank you for being here. And thank you, everyone who have joined and listened to this podcast. And if you loved what you heard, please don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Click the little campanita, the little bell on Spotify or your favorite platform so that you don't miss on any other episodes. And if you want to share this to friends, please do forward it and review it as well. Give a review because that helps also to keep expanding and sharing this information and this wisdom. And thank you all for being here. Gracias, amiga.
Thank you for inviting me. It's an honor to be your first guest. Let's go out and play.
Let's go out and play. All right, beautifuls. I'll catch you on the next one.